Hello and welcome to my second video blog. Today's my birthday, which would be awesome because I get to sleep in and wait, no, I don't get to sleep in because I have a new demon puppy. What's up? Look how cute he is. Oh, I'm just a little puppy. I'm just a little puppy. I'm just a little puppy. But yeah, so today is my birthday and I'm going... Oh, jeez, calm down, buddy. I'm going to be talking about the thing that we were talking about in class, and I guess the part that I want to specify on magnify, cut out, as you would say, is I guess the fact that our medium today of communication has a similar effect as past modes of communication, but a different cause. And to specify as to what I mean by that, really, it's funny because in the past you wouldn't get that much information. You know, we didn't have TVs or the internet or whatever have you. Whereas today we have easy ways of communication. It's really kind of amazing. It's blossomed really well. I mean, the bridge between when you have a thought and you create something is vastly shortened to the point where we're becoming almost post-human, as some philosophers have spoken about. But I guess the important thing that I want to kind of like really hone in on right now is that disconnect between where you're getting information from. Because, alright, so you only have a certain amount of time in a day, and how do you distribute what you watch in that amount of time? Normally it isn't like... Alright, I'll give you an example. Actually, this is probably the perfect example. These video blogs. I mean, we're all doing one, but in the end, who's going to be watching? Because everyone has a lot of time on that they want to spend doing things they're familiar with, things that are more popular, things they've been told, things that have gained mass appeal, and of course you have to buy time normally to have that kind of advertising, so immediately whatever you're shown is really influenced by money and where it's going. Which should come as a surprise to no one, and it's probably redundant to even state it, but it's definitely interesting the fact that... I'm sorry, this puppy is just too much to handle. What's interesting is that no matter what, we don't really have much of a choice beyond... It's like a multiple choice test. You know, you're given 3-4 options that are pretty good, and then that's kind of the illusion of choice, isn't it? Because someone's giving you those 4 options to begin with. And that's kind of the way it is with the news especially. You know, it's very easy to monopolize information. I mean, governments have been wishing to do that. If anyone's ever played a game called Metal Gear Solid, it's actually... the first one came out a long time ago for Super Nintendo, but a lot of the ones that came out recently, Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4, they kind of had that story in mind for their entire, series. The idea that government's next big weapon is not going to be nuclear, but an information control. GW was what it was called in there. And basically, it's not too hard to see that. I mean, you see that in China, they're controlling what links you get. I mean, even if you don't want to think about governments, but the corporations that have power, I mean, Google really shows you what you see. I mean, what do you look through for the internet? What kind of browser do you use? No matter what, you're still going to probably be using Google. And that's crazy. And you paid to have your option listed higher. And by that same token, it also has more views, not maybe because it's more truthful or better, but because that's just what everyone is looking at because they're shown it. So there's kind of that disconnect there. And in a lot of ways, we try to go ahead and believe credible sources that might seem more like, let's say, evened out. You know, in the middle is now what everyone's aiming for. And that's kind of a weird phenomenon that's been happening. It's no longer that you're just like, something is good or bad, but now you're always looking at what's the even story, you know, the one that's, you know, not choosing sides or whatever. But that's fucking crazy. Pardon the language, but I mean, since when did the gray area become all of a sudden the good area? Sometimes things are just right and wrong, and as Bill Maher once said, you know, you didn't go to Martin Luther King Jr. and say, hey, I like your dream, I respect it, but, you know, our dream is slavery, so let's meet in the middle somewhere. No, you fucking argue until you figure out what's right and what's not. And we don't do that anymore. Now we have this fake idea of sincerity, of like, we have to go ahead and seem like we're, you know, not picking sides, but rather just trying to do some kind of compromise. Which, I guess, under the ethos of a democracy, that kind of makes sense. But is it really genuine? I mean, that's as contrived as anything else then. And interestingly, what you see happening all the time is that, for example, Fox News is pushing where the right once was. It's becoming extreme and kind of ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, where you meet in the middle is no longer the middle anymore. And once again, I am quoting Bill Maher on this, and I think it was a perfect analogy, because that's what's happening. You're asking us to constantly meet you in the middle, but you're always moving where the line is. So that's the strange thing that's going on. And if you always look at life according to sides and things of that sort, and you think that the middle ground is always the best, you're kind of missing out on a lot, and actually that's kind of intellectually lazy and irresponsible. But it's great that we have this kind of communication, though, and that kind of begs the question of what we do with a democracy. Can we actually have a radical democracy that we envisioned a long time ago? I mean, we all thought that the internet was going to liberate us, and in the end we just ended up jacking off a lot. But when it comes to the fact of voting, you look at Florida, actually no, sorry, California recently, and they tried enacting a law where you can bypass legislature by getting enough signatures to get a law through. And what ended up happening, someone would get a law passed, then the corporation that's suffering from it had people outside of their doors collecting signatures, and then that law would stack on top of that law, constantly override into an endless case of just one-uppery. Like, that just is the most irresponsible kind of democracy. And then you have to get into the question of, is it, should we have some kind of, like, if we do ever incorporate some kind of radical, amendment or revisement of the Constitution and try to go ahead and incorporate radical democracy, do we want that? I mean, can you trust the average person to even do that, especially considering that, and I should specify here, it's not always a person's fault. It almost never is. You just are who you are, and people don't always try to go past and question that. So if their information, like I was telling you before, is, sided to one side or another because of just who's paying more, or because it's that the false sincerity thing is coming through, in the end, where is your information coming from? Well, in the end, it's influencing you, and if you don't have the patience or time to sift through thousands of different articles with differing and varying opinions, then you're just you make the best with what you have. And that's what we do all the time, and it's almost impossible to imagine anything but that. So that's, I guess, my little bit on this. It sounds a little bit pessimistic, but I don't think we're done trying to figure things out and thinking of creative ways of improving ourselves. That's what we do. And on that note, I'm out. Peace.